Hello YouTube, W&J's Handy Dad here, and today we're going to talk about car insurance. States usually have minimum coverage laws. For example, Texas requires $30,000, $60,000, $25,000 coverage. The first number is your per person coverage, second is per accident, and third is your property damage. So while it's legal to drive with what they call minimum coverage, is it smart? That's what we're going to talk about today. First thing you need to be aware of is your uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage is tied to your liability limits. So if you have low limits and you're hit by an uninsured driver, then you have only your minimal coverage, which might not be enough to fix your vehicle, let alone compensate you for any injuries that you suffer. And here's a unique caveat. It's usually not very expensive to raise your liability limits to a much higher number. For example, 100,000, 300,000, 100,000 coverage, or even 250, 500, 250 coverage, oftentimes doesn't cost that much more than just having your minimum coverage, but it offers you a lot more protection. Some companies also offer what's called umbrella coverage, which it can be $1 million or even more. I've seen, several $1 million coverage for umbrella policies. And basically, umbrella coverage kicks in after your insurance limits are reached. So if you were in some sort of catastrophic situation where you had millions of dollars in damages, the umbrella coverage would kick in and cover you. And ironically, umbrella coverage is usually very inexpensive as well. Here's where I get to be a little bit angry. I think liability insurance coverage is a scam when you have more than one vehicle because they basically penalize you. Liability coverage should be charged per driver, not per vehicle. And what happens is if you are one driver but you have two or more vehicles like I do, you pay liability on every vehicle even though you can only drive one at a time. And so that's what I'm talking about, that there's a penalty for having more than one vehicle. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, what if you have one vehicle that's more dangerous than the others? Well, obviously the insurance company could charge a premium for that. But bottom line, I can only drive one vehicle at a time, and yet I pay liability on all the parked ones that can't create a liability insurance claim because they're parked. I know some of you are thinking, well, someone else might drive them. Well, typically the insurance is not going to cover that situation. They're only going to cover what they call covered drivers. So those parked vehicles can't create an insurance claim, and yet I and you as well, if you have more than one vehicle, are paying insurance for that. And I think that's a scam, but that's how it is, and I don't see them changing unless we all fight them on that. What about no-fault insurance? Is that better? I know some states offer what we call no-fault insurance, which basically is just having uninsured motorist coverage instead of each person having liability. And then you just pay for things that happen to you as if someone hit you that doesn't have insurance. It seems like that would probably work out to everyone's benefit and be cheaper for everybody involved, because basically if you buy insurance, you're covering yourself, and if someone else doesn't buy insurance, they're out of luck. But I can also see where good drivers probably don't like that, because it's kind of an un-American thing to pay when someone else is at fault for harming you. So liability coverage is basically when you hit somebody or something, then your insurance covers the damages that you caused. That's why you have liability. Let's talk about the other types of coverage. So the first one would be collision coverage, and typically this is optional unless you have it required by your finance company. For example, if you have a car payment, they may require you to have collision coverage on your vehicle. So collision covers repair damage to your vehicle caused by your driving. For example, if you are at fault in an accident and your vehicle is damaged, if you have collision coverage, then they will cover the repairs to your vehicle. Otherwise, you're paying those out of pocket. So is it worth having? Well, you need to consider a lot of things. First of all, what type of driver are you? Do you tend to hit things and damage your vehicle when driving? Or are you the type of person that's never had an at-fault accident, that sort of thing? Consider the cost of your vehicle, your ability to repair things yourself. For example, maybe you can do some light body work like I can do. You might be able to fix things yourself cheaper than having collision coverage. Some of you probably can do complete body repair, no matter what you do to your car. How much do you care about visible damage on your car? Are you like me where you want it to be, showroom new all the time, or do a few little bumps and scrapes and dents not bother you? Then you may not care to have collision. The other factor to really consider is the deductible. If you set your deductible too high that you can't afford to pay it if you have a claim, then you're kind of stuck there. But if you lower your deductible, then you're usually paying a lot more per month or per 6 months or per year, depending on how often you pay for your insurance. And so that may be a factor too. So the bottom line, there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer to this. You've got to decide on all those factors, what's right for you. You may only be required to have the insurance, like I said, if the bank that's financing your car is requiring it. And, it may only be worth having if you play around with the deductible amount to get the best bang for the buck coverage that's right for you. So play around with the numbers and see what's right. And I can't tell you whether you should have it or shouldn't have it. It's just a personal thing. Taking this to the next level, though, you can calculate the trade-in value of your vehicle and research some common body repair estimates. Because if your car receives damage greater than what the insurance company believes to be the value of the car, then they will, quote, total your car, and you'll be in a fight with the insurance company over how much money you're going to get for the value of your car, unless you have a stated value policy, which is a rare thing, but you might be able to do, where you can say, look, my car's worth $10,000. That's what the value is. Otherwise, they're probably going to go with some low blue book type value. The stated value is where you and the insurance company agree on the value of the car, and that becomes the value that they pay you on a total loss. So for me, I have that on my Crown Vics because Crown Vics have a terrible book value, but the real life replacement cost is much higher. And obviously with the demand of Crown Vics right now, the value seems to be going up. What about comprehensive, or what a lot of people just call comp coverage? Again, this is an optional one unless it's required by the company that's financing your vehicle. Basically, comprehensive is a lot like collision coverage, so everything I talked about there before is pretty much going to apply. The difference between collision and comp is comp covers everything other than collision. So basically, vehicle burglary, vandalism, hail, fire, floods, those sorts of things. Read the terms of the coverage carefully to make sure you know what they cover and what they don't. But typically I think of comprehensive as being like someone breaks in and steals your stereo, window glass gets broken, hail damage, those sorts of things are typically what comp covers. What about towing and roadside assistance? Well, before you purchase this coverage, I would say make sure you're not getting it free from another source, such as your credit card, credit union, bank, job, or obviously if you just don't need it, maybe you have the ability to tow your own vehicle, you have your ways to jumpstart a dead battery, you can change your own flat tires, things like that, then you may not need it. Also read the policy carefully. Make sure you know what they're covering and what they exclude. Towing may be more expensive than what they cover, for example, that sort of thing. There's a coverage called medical payments, or PIP, which stands for personal injury protection. This is an interesting one. Basically, as I understand it, it can be used oftentimes immediately to cover medical expenses due to a vehicle-related accident. and possibly even covers you while you're walking or biking. You want to read your policy there and make sure. It may also cover non-medical expenses like lost wages. Again, you want to read your policy there. So usually low limits. So a lot of times they may only cover 5,000, 10,000, something like that. But it can be used, if you don't have good health insurance, or maybe you don't have health insurance at all, but you get injured, this can kick in. Like I said, usually immediately. So you go to the doctor right away and use this right away. So you get the help that you need. So it's worth looking into. Again, just you want to read it, make sure that it covers what you expect, and that it's not breaking the bank for you. Rental coverage is another one that you really want to read the policy carefully and see what exactly they're covering, because it may or may not cover what you need. For example, let's say you drive a really large truck or SUV as your daily driver and you really need that size of vehicle. Your rental coverage might only get you a small compact car. There might be time limits as well. For example, it might only cover for 3 days, a week, whatever. And if your vehicle is out of service for a long time, then you may be paying for the rental out of pocket. And then, of course, if you're like me and you got multiple vehicles, you may not need rental coverage anyway. The last one that really makes me mad are the crooked companies. And I'm not going to say any names because I really don't want to get sued, but most of you probably know which ones I'm talking about if you've ever been involved in any kind of claims. But let's say that you bump somebody at a relatively slow speed. You know you're at fault and you admit it. Thankfully, they're not injured badly, but they do have some soft tissue injuries, which is normal, number one, and number two, typically don't show up for 24 to 48 hours after the accident. So, at the scene, maybe they say, oh, they're fine or whatever, but then they wake up the next day and they're in excruciating pain or whatever. So they suffer through the pain with minimal medical intervention and minimal lost work. They file a claim for their lost wages, their medical bills, and, little money for their pain, because let's face it, pain should be compensated. It's an injury. Your insurance company denies their claim using the typical, they didn't go to the emergency room in an ambulance, so they weren't injured mentality. Now they're mad, and you're sitting there thinking, why isn't my insurance paying it? Or maybe initially you're happy that they didn't pay the claim. So they're frustrated. They go contact a personal injury lawyer, and that lawyer has to file suit against you because they don't sue the insurance company, they sue you. You now have to take off work. You probably have to answer the discovery requests. You may have to appear at a deposition. You might even have to go to court. Win or lose, it's a mess for everybody, and it's the crooked insurance company's fault that they didn't just pay the claim initially. Oh, and of course, your rates go up. I hope this video helps you better understand insurance and all the different types of coverage and whether or not you need them or should buy them. And overall, I hope the video was helpful to you. Appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And please tell your friends about my channel. Thank you very much.